My stepmother looked me in the eye at my own father's funeral and said, "You don't belong here, you never did," in front of 60 people, while my father's casket was still open. My name is Clara Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and I spent 20 years trying to earn a love that was never meant for me. It started the summer I was 14. My dad sat me down at the kitchen table and said, "Her name is Joanna. I think you're going to love her." I didn't, but I tried. Joanna smiled at school events. She packed my lunches the first week. She even bought me a birthday cake in May. But behind closed doors, she called me your daughter when she talked to my dad. Never Clara, never our girl, just your daughter. Like I was a problem that came with the house. She performed love for an audience. Alone with me, she performed nothing. The shift 6 months later, Joanna got pregnant, and everything changed overnight. The nursery got painted yellow. A new crib arrived. New curtains, new rugs, new everything. My room still had the same torn blinds from when I was 8. I asked Dad if we could fix the blinds. He said, "Clara, we're on a budget right now." Then Saturday, he drove home with a $900 baby monitor. I learned what I was worth by watching what they spent. The invisible child, my half-brother Eli, was born in March. He was beautiful. I don't blame Eli, I never did. But Dad held Eli differently. He smiled at Eli differently. Like something in his chest had finally clicked into place, and I was the one who never fit. I tried harder, made honor roll, won the science fair, cleaned the kitchen without being asked. Dad said, "Good job, kid," once. He called Eli my miracle every single day. At 16, I overheard Joanna on the phone with her sister. She said, "Clara's always hovering, she's too needy. I think Richard feels guilty, so he overcompensates." I was making dinner for all 4 of us. While she talked on the phone, they called me too much while I made myself as small as possible. The woman who saw me, the only person who ever really saw me, was my grandmother, Nana Ruth. Every Sunday, she called me on the phone. Not Dad, me. She asked about my grades, my friends, my dreams. She sent me care packages at college, homemade cookies, little notes tucked inside. She wrote in her loopy handwriting, "You are not too much. You are exactly enough." When I graduated college, Nana Ruth was in the front row. Dad didn't come. Joanna said he had a work conflict. I found out later they took Eli to Disney World that weekend. I didn't cry at graduation. I cried in the car, alone, on the drive home. But when I got back to my apartment, there was a package from Nana Ruth. Inside was a small gold ring. A note said, "This was your mother's. You earned today all by yourself. I am so proud." The woman who had no obligation to love me loved me the most. Nana Ruth's secret in 2020, Nana Ruth called me, not for our usual chat. Her voice was different, slower, quieter. She had been diagnosed with early-stage dementia. "Clara," she said, "I need to tell you something while I still can." She told me she had changed her will. She owned a small house on Birchwood Lane. She'd been renting it for years. She said she was leaving it to me. "Your father has Joanna. Eli has both of them. But you, sweetheart, you've been building your life with nothing but 2 hands and a brave heart. The house is yours." She paused, then she said, "Don't tell them yet, the lawyer has everything, trust the process." I promised her I would stay quiet. I kept that promise. One line twist, she didn't just leave me property, she left me proof that someone had been paying attention. Dad's illness and the gathering last year, Dad got sick. Heart failure. It moved fast. I drove 5 hours to be at the hospital. Joanna barely acknowledged me in the hallway. Dad squeezed my hand once. He said, "You turned out okay, Clara. Not I'm proud of you, not I'm sorry. Just you turned out okay." I said, "I love you, Dad." He closed his eyes. He passed away on a Tuesday morning in November. The last thing I told him was true, even after everything. I loved him. The funeral was held at St. Michael's Church. 60 people. Family. Friends, neighbors, Joanna arranged everything. I was not asked for input. My name was not in the program, not in the obituary, not in the survived by list. Dad was survived by his wife Joanna, his son Eli, and her kids from a previous relationship. I was not mentioned, his biological daughter. Erased from his death the same way I was erased from his life. They waited until he died to finally make it official. The words at the casket after the service, people gathered near the casket. I stood to the side, quiet. Joanna walked over. Calm, composed, confident. She leaned close and said, loudly enough for the people around us to hear, "You don't belong here, Clara. You never did. This is our family's moment. Please respect that." And she walked away, back to her people, like I was nothing. A woman nearby, Mrs. Elaine Dodd, touched my arm. She said softly, "I heard that. That was cruel, I'm sorry." That one sentence from a stranger held me together. One line twist. I had survived years of quiet erasure, but hearing it said out loud in public finally broke me open. The shoebox moment, 3 weeks after the funeral, I was cleaning out Nana Ruth's things. I found a sealed envelope taped to the inside of her closet shelf. My name was written on it in her handwriting. Inside was a letter, and a copy of the amended will. The letter read, "Dear Clara, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And knowing your father's family, I suspect things have gotten hard. You were never the problem. You were always the gift. I am leaving you the house on Birchwood Lane because I want you to have something that cannot be taken, something that says you were here, you mattered, you were loved. The lawyer's name is Martin Webb. He has everything. Call him, stand tall, you are your mother's daughter, and your mother was wonderful." I sat on Nana Ruth's floor for a long time. I didn't cry right away, I just held her letter. And breathed. She didn't just leave me a house, she left me back my name. The call to the lawyer, I called Martin Webb the next morning. He confirmed everything. The amendment was signed, witnessed, notarized, perfectly legal, perfectly documented. He said, "Your grandmother was very deliberate, Ms. Bennett." She came to my office twice to make sure every line was right. She said, and I wrote this down, "Clara has been overlooked her whole life. I want this to be something no one can overlook. The house on Birchwood Lane is mine. A 3-bedroom house, fully paid off, worth more than I make in 3 years." Joanna found out through the estate process. She called me screaming. No lawyer would take her case. The paperwork was too solid. Joanna stopped calling after 2 weeks. Eli texted me a month later. Just 4 words. "Are you doing okay?" I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Getting there, you." We've texted a few times since. Careful. Slow, he's 18 and figuring out who he is. I don't blame him for what his mother did. Maybe someday we'll have something real, maybe not. But I left the door cracked open. Because I know what it feels like when someone slams it shut. I chose not to become the thing that was done to me. I moved into the house on Birchwood Lane in January. The first thing I did was hang Nana Ruth's photo in the hallway, then my mother's photo beside it. 2 women who loved me before I gave them any reason to. In the kitchen, on the windowsill, I placed the shoebox, her letters, my mother's ring, the will, everything that proves I was always someone's something. I painted the bedroom walls the exact shade of blue I'd always wanted. No one told me I couldn't. No one asked me to pick something else. For the first time in my life, I was home. The truth they never told you here is what they don't tell you about growing up as the overlooked child. It doesn't feel like abuse. It feels like weather, like something that just happens. The table gets set, and somehow your plate is always a little farther away. The photos get framed, and somehow you're always on the edge. The love gets handed out, and somehow your share is always a little less. And over time, you stop noticing. You start thinking that's just how you are. Too much, too needy, too loud, not enough. But that's a lie. That's their lie, and you don't have to carry it anymore. The wound was never your personality, it was their choice. At my father's funeral, when Joanna told me I didn't belong, I wanted to disappear. Every old feeling rushed back. The torn blinds, the packed lunches that stopped, the graduation they missed. But then I thought of Nana Ruth. Front row, cookie packages, loopy handwriting, "You are exactly enough." And I thought she saw me, she always saw me, and I am still here. So if you are the one in the family who always feels like the footnote, the one who tries the hardest and gets noticed the least, hear me. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You don't have to earn what you were owed from birth. Soft ending the house on Birchwood Lane is quiet in the mornings. I make coffee, I sit by the window. And sometimes I talk to Nana Ruth like she can still hear me. I think she can. Drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. And if you stayed until the end, subscribe, because the next story gets even more real.